Hey guys, my name is Zucker. I'm the author of Sheets of Sound for Guitar, and I'm going to talk to you today about a few approaches that you can use over rhythm changes. I demonstrated some of these in a version of Oleo I posted earlier, but I'm going to go through them one by one and let you know how you can incorporate these into your playing and just some different ways you can play over the tune. The first way is actually playing over the changes as written in a bop style, and I'll just play for a few seconds over it using my bop style, which is a derivative of Pat Martino, Joe Pass, Charlie Parker, etc. So that's the first thing. So I'm not going to go into detail about what I was doing over that because I think what I would recommend, of course, is to copy Charlie Parker, copy Joe Pass, copy Pat Martino. Joe Pass has got a book called Joe Pass Guitar Style, and a lot of my style actually sounds really familiar if you start going through his 2-5-1s and some of his rhythm change variations. I think you'll recognize that style very much. So the second thing on my list is just playing blues licks, and that should be familiar to everybody. And what I think a lot of guitar players miss, at least the guys that are playing straight ahead jazz, is that guitar came from a lot of blues influences, and we want to take advantage of those. So that's a very simple thing, but I'll demonstrate that. I think probably you already know how to do that. So pretty much self-explanatory. I combine a little bit of bop element there, but the main thing is getting in the blues scales, getting some bends, not being afraid to bend notes, because a lot of times that's how you're going to connect with the audience, who's not going to understand the Coltrane-esque things necessarily. But if you can connect everything together in a way that's relatable to a vocal style, particularly the blues, I think you'll find that people will get into that. Okay, so the third thing on my list was to use sidestepping and fourths. And what I use for my picking technique is I use my pick and 2 fingers for the fourths, but a lot of guys like Rodney Jones, for example, does it all with a pick. He has way more chops than I do, so I cheat a little bit and use the pick and fingers. And here's what the fourths sound like. I'll start out a little bit inside and then start moving it inside and outside with sidestepping, basically meaning that I'm going to sidestep up a half step or down a half step. So that's the fourth thing. That's pretty simple. What I'm doing sounds complicated, but all I'm doing is basically taking something that I borrowed from Howard Roberts called sonic shapes, which is that you take a shape, and it can be any chord or any shape. In this case, it's fourths, and I move it around, and because the user hears the pattern, it starts to sound familiar to the user, and instead of hearing it as a disjointed set of random notes, they hear the pattern and can vibe with the pattern because it's something that they've heard. Which comes back to something that I've said for a long time. People say they know what they like, but they really like what they know. And so you can take advantage of that in your solo by building on themes and doing things like taking little patterns and moving them around, because once people hear the patterns a few times, they know the pattern and therefore they like it. Okay, so the fourth thing is similar to what we just did with the fourths, except this time it's with pentatonics. Exactly the same concept, except I'm going to be moving some pentatonics around. And you can start in like a sort of a bluesy pentatonic vibe, but then you can extrapolate that out to sidestepping up or up or down half a step. All right, so that's the pentatonics, and basically, I use that technique in pentatonics where if I'm playing a pattern, what I do is I hammer on a note, and then I use my hybrid picking with either my index or my middle finger to play the next note. So, okay, so this one is kind of an interesting thing. It's actually based off of something that Charlie Parker did, where you probably remember this for 2-5-1. Bird would do. So he would be playing over a C minor 7, and then he'd play over a B major 7. He'd be using that B major 7 over the F7 chord. And for a long time, I didn't understand how that worked because it didn't have the right notes for the chord. But eventually what I realized is that, music is just sound, and so sound can go anywhere you want it. And he was hearing that B major 7 leading down to the B flat of the tonic. And so what I started doing was I started extrapolating that out into forcing myself to move into a B major 7 kind of tonality during the execution of the changes. And you can do it with any chord. I'm just picking the tonic in this case. So I'm going to play a little bit of sort of bop just for a few seconds, and then I'm going to transition over to the B major 7 so you can hear what that sounds like. And so what I did was predominantly stay in the B major 7. I would play a few bop licks, move up to the B major 7, and then resolve it down when it gets to the resolution of the final part of the cadence. So that's a cool example of something you can do and it doesn't have to be the B major 7, you can use any chord there. I can use, for example, F sharp major 7, I'll just show you that. And again, I'm using it judiciously, occasionally resolving it when I hear a chord change occur. And that's the power of this. And if you stop and analyze some of these chords that are outside of the tonality, you can see that they can relate sometimes in terms of cadences and different things that you can do to get back into the original tonality. So that's the B major 7. The next approach is using an alter dominant type of sound, and Brecker did this all the time. He would use like a B flat alter dominant, which essentially could be looked at as a B melodic minor over the tonic part, and then using a half step up from each of the dominant 7 chords in the bridge. And sometimes what I do is I will take a couple beats or maybe a measure of the standard chord, and then I'll move it up half a step with that melodic minor. And I'll try to do that on the bridge if I remember. But I'm going to be using the B melodic minor for the tonic part of the tune. So yeah, I tried my best to do it on the bridge. So what I did on the bridge was when it was on the D7 chord, I was using basically something based around the A minor 7 D7. Then I would play E flat. Then when it went to the G7, I was predominantly playing on that, and then one bar of the A flat melodic. And then when it got to the C7, played one bar of the C sharp melodic minor. And then F7, and then with F sharp melodic minor. But the cool thing is over the tonic, where it's on that chord, so I'm a half step up from the tonic with the melodic minor on that. And that's a really cool device. And there's a lot of patterns you can do. In fact, you can take patterns over that, and it sounds even cooler than just playing melodic minor scales or bebop licks. But we'll get into that in a subsequent lesson when I talk about synthetic pentatonics. And the last thing is chordal anticipation. And I like to combine this with a bluesy approach. So I'm using the soulful bluesy approach, but I'm anticipating the chord by hitting the downbeat on beat 4 of the tune instead of beat 1 of the tune. So here we go, listen to that. So those are 6 or 7 different ways you can play over rhythm changes. I think too many people, including myself, get locked into the bop way of playing over it where you're trying to outline every change. And there's a lot of things you can do there. And by no means did I even exhaust those. There's some common substitutions, which we didn't even talk about, which we can add in another lesson. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what I was doing on that other clip. And I hope this information was helpful to you. And please ask any questions, because my goal is to try to make things easier for everybody, including myself. So I love all you guys. Thank you for sticking with me through my surgery, my wife's surgery. Check it out, jackzucker.com. Please support me with sheets of sound for guitar, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.